All right, guys. Well, thanks for doing this with us. This is going to be pretty cool.
Yeah.
We got Jeff Wilson and Brian Andrews. It's nice to meet you guys. I know there's been quite a bit of talk in Testfire and everywhere else. When you guys were coming, they were pretty excited. So we got the Sons of Valor series going on, getting ready to come out with the fourth. So why don't you guys just give us a little rundown, walk us through those, and kind of where we're at starting this fourth book here.
Sure. Yeah. So Sons of Valor is actually the second series that we wrote as Andrews and Wilson. And it's a spin-off from our tentpole series, which is Tier 1. So just for people who haven't read any of them, a little background. The Tier 1 series, we have meet a special operator from the JSOC SEAL team, who's in the entire JSOC SEAL team is wiped out. He's the sole survivor. And he's given the opportunity to assume a new identity, join a joint task force, and hunt down the people responsible, right? So we have, we're working on the 10th book? Mm-hmm. Yeah, 10th book in that series we're working on now. So it's been around a while. Early in the series, the second book, we introduced this minor character, this Navy SEAL Chunk Redmond, right? And they were augmenting our operators, and we got more fan mail about Chunk than on like almost some of our main characters. And so we always had said, well, if we ever do a spin-off series, we got to bring Chunk back. And we had the opportunity to do that. In real life, if you lost that unit, you'd stand it back up. And so we pitched the idea of spinning off a series called Sons of Valor, which would focus on the SEAL team being stood back up, and we would bring Chunk back. And so that's how Sons of Valor was born.
Yeah. It's funny how that works. Either, you have a little idea, whether it's with a gun or you have a side character, and then you get so much feedback, they end up being their own piece.
Yeah, that's what happened here for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. So the fourth book, that's coming out the 22nd, right? So you can expect to find that in, major box stores and Amazon and so on and everywhere else. The AR we produced for you guys, that was pretty cool. Got to see your reaction today with that. How, when you're writing these, and you're coming up with the story and so on, you could use a made-up gun, you could use anything. What kind of led towards the Wilson combat route? What was the mindset there?
Yeah, I think it's Wilson is the logical choice because it's already the logical choice for folks that are in this particular line of work, right?
And names.
And the name.
And the names, yeah. If only we had root beer, A&W root beer drinking right now. So this is a platform that you guys cater to special forces already. Folks will come ask your advice on how to optimize their platforms, and so we felt like it was just logical to go ahead and take real life and portray it in fiction. And so, these teams specialize, at least our unit is mainly specializing in counterterrorism operations. There's a lot of close quarters combat, and they need a reliable, highly accurate, highly efficient weapon, and so it just worked out perfectly.
Yeah.
And the relationship grew from there. Like, what's funny, what we want people to understand is I think there's a lot of people that think, Wilson approached you about product placement or something like that. It wasn't like that at all. It was the most organic thing. I worked in special warfare, and so I've known about Wilson Combat forever. I've got friends that came out here when I was still working that you guys custom built stuff for them. So when we first wrote Wilson into something, it was just because that was the thing. Like, it was like, oh yeah, this is what this dude would use, right? And then a friend of ours, Jason, who you guys know and we know, said, you should meet these guys. And so we did. And Guy, who we love, we had this amazing phone call with him and said, hey, listen, would you be willing, we're not trying to put work on you, could you design custom weapons for like the members of the team?
Sure.
Like, that'd be really cool. And he's like, oh yeah, we'd do that for you. So we're expecting to come back, get an email with like, use this guy, like one paragraph. Yeah. We got this 8-page, Guy, right? Guy very well. We get this 8-page document with every friggin' detail, and we're like, oh my God, this is amazing. He made our job so easy. This is what we're gonna do. And so we called him up. We got on a call to thank him, and he goes, yeah. So when are you gonna come shoot him? What are you talking about? He goes, we geeked out on it, and so we actually built these weapons, and we put them all together. If you want to come out, you can shoot them. And so that's really how this friendship became. Was we said, well, hell yeah, we want to shoot him. So we came out to Arkansas, and it's 2 years.
Yeah, I think
2
it's
years
been
ago.
2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We came out and saw the tour of how, I had never seen, I've seen guns made before. I've never seen anything like this. Sure. Like, the way Wilson does stuff, obviously, is very, very special. So we were just like blown away, and then got to shoot the weapons, and then from there it just Yeah, it's really just like a friendship.
Yeah, absolutely. And to that about the shop, I've been to other factories, and it feels more like a factory. You know, here you got everybody knowing each other's names. Everybody's got hands-on. It's a much different feel here.
It's amazing. You guys are like a family. You know, you walk around and you're with the CEO or with the ops officer or whatever, and everyone's like, hey, dude, hey, bro. Like, it felt a lot. I'll tell you what it felt like. It felt a lot like JSOC, you know. Okay. Everybody's intimate. It's a brotherhood. And you felt that here, I think. That's one of the things I think that makes you all so special.
Yeah, that's great. So that kind of leads to the next part. You know, where do you guys come from? You know, where's your background? I know we talked a little at lunch, but, you know, for the viewers, how'd you end up from there to now writing, and what did that look like for you guys?
Yeah, that's a great question. We're both Navy veterans. I was a submarine officer. I served on a fast attack submarine in the Pacific. So we weren't using Wilson. We had tomahawks and torpedoes. Sure. But if you guys want to get into that business, I can put you in touch with some people.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a little bit bigger platform.
Business card.
Yeah. Yeah, and so, you know, one of the great things about, you know, time and service is that you meet amazing people. Sure. They're doing amazing things at the tip of the spear. And, you know, as you get to know your shipmates, you know, they become sort of like we were talking about just a minute ago. It becomes like a family. You know, your boat or your unit's like a family to you. And, you know, everybody's swapping stories, and you're putting your lives in those people's hands and vice versa. And so by the time you leave that community, you know, just if you were paying attention, if you were talking to people, you collected a lot of stories.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, and also I think there's just something special, especially if you have a storyteller's heart, to want to share, you know, those experiences with people. So when I got out of the Navy, you know, it seemed like sort of a logical pivot to start, you know, as I was becoming a thriller writer, to say, you know, let's not only celebrate, but let's, you know, invite readers into the lives of the men and women who are serving on the front lines. Yeah. And so that's sort of that ethos of service becomes an ethos in our storytelling as well.
Right. Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
And then my path to writing was a little different. Brian started after his service. I've always written, so I've had like 20 different careers. My mom makes fun of me, says I can't keep a job. But when I was in the military, I'd already been writing. I published my first short story when I was like 13 or 14 years old. And so writing was just a thread that was always part of my DNA, and just storytelling in general. And so after my time in the Navy, I started pursuing, I wrote my first novel while I was still in the Navy. And so I started pursuing that as a career, and that's when I met Brian. And you know, we became very good friends before we started writing together. He was writing, I was writing. We both had solo works out. And it was his idea to kind of write together.
Sure.
And to be honest, at first I was against it. Like, I flat out said, no, dude. I don't even know what does that even mean? Like, you write the nouns, I write the verbs. Like, what does that look? Because I've been writing my whole life, right? And so I couldn't imagine what it looked like. But we were good friends, and he had this great idea of doing like subs and seals. And he was like, well, let's map something out. So we did, and that's how the partnership was formed. But I think that to what Brian was saying about the relationships, you know, taking our experiences out of the Navy into storytelling, I think is a little bit about that makes Andrews and Wilson a little unique. So our genre tends to be very plot driven, right? I mean, nothing against these other storytellers. They're amazing books. I grew up reading them, right? Like, you read Mitch Rapp, and it's like, you know, they're great. Sure. But I think that what makes ours different and why we've been so successful is because just by nature of who we are, we wind these relationships into things. So our stories, the plot matters. It's a thriller. It better be exciting, right? But they're very character driven. People are interested. Our fans write us more about what's going to happen with Dempsey's son next, rather than, who's he going to kill next? Who's the next bad
Rather
guy?
than what conflict, but just about the character itself.
Exactly. And so, and to Brian's point, that was highly intentional, because we feel an obligation as people who have served in war to share those stories and give people only 1% of people serve.
Sure.
So how do other people really fully appreciate that unless you can give them a little glimpse into the life, the sacrifice, and not just the operators, but their families? What's the toll on the family, on a marriage, on a child? And we try to weave that in. And I do think that's sort of been our special sauce.
Sure, yeah. Well, and excuse me, that's a piece, especially watching movies or TV shows. It's really just when's the next explosion, you know, when are they going to go on the next mission? But telling that side of it where you really get attached to the people, that's a whole nother route that is very underutilized, and especially those platforms. Myself, I'm pretty guilty, but I watch 90% of what I consume. So you're watching these TikTok videos or you're watching YouTube, whatever it is, and it's like a 2-minute video of getting your attention, and then it's on. And my girlfriend's the worst for it. But we'll watch a movie, and if she's not hooked immediately, she's back on her phone. So, yeah, I think that's awesome, just giving people that inside scoop to it. You kind of led there to the next question, but working together and writing together. So my father's a writer, too. I've never seen him write with someone, So what does that look like? You said nouns and verbs.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
No. No, it's been the greatest blessing of my life to be able to, first of all, you're working with your best friend, and that's kind of cool, right? Yeah. So, it's either going to be really cool or you're not going to be friends anymore, right? Yep. Exactly. And so we lucked out. But I think that having served in the military, and we talk about team and mission before self in our books a lot. But I think for people who haven't served, not just in the military, but whether it's law enforcement or fire service or whatever, when you've really been in a brotherhood like that, you appreciate more what that really means. It's not just a bumper sticker anymore. Sure. Yep. And I think it was part of our DNA, as Brian likes to say, one dude doesn't drive an $8 billion submarine, right? And one guy doesn't really halo jump and take down bin Laden. It's a team, and everyone has their own skill sets, and you rely on each other. And so we just sort of took what we learned in the military to writing. And I think, what we produce is better than what I could write by myself, and better than what he could write by himself, because there's no ego involved. We're like, we just wanted to, what's the mission? Write a great book.
Right.
Yeah. And so we edit each other's work. We never ask permission. He sends me a chapter. I rewrite it. I don't call and say, hey, I don't want to hurt your feelings, but I didn't like this part, right? I just do it, and vice versa. He takes my stuff and he just completely rewrites it. There's no rules if it's going to make it better than just do it. So I think it's a weird way to write. There's not a lot of writing partnerships out there, and I don't know anyone else that does it like we do. But I think the only reason it works is because of our military background.
There are other co-author teams, and I think they come from different backgrounds, and we've talked to them, and a lot of them have different methodologies, different ways they make it work, and I don't think any of them have lasted as long as we have, or have produced as many novels.
Sure.
So I think our method really works for us. And so when we're counseling any new writers or aspiring writers or people that are thinking about co-authoring, and they say, how do you guys do it? We say, well, this is what works for us. It may or may not work for you. Right. And that military mission before self mindset and really being able to check your ego is our secret sauce. I think most authors are really proud of their words, and they probably write some really nice words. But you have to, Hemingway said you have to be able to kill your darlings, and what he meant by that is, you can't guard a particular piece of prose. It's more about the story, the characters, how propulsive is this experience that the reader has, right? And so, the reader's not pausing every couple pages to say, wow, that sentence was crafted really well, right? They care about the dialogue and what's going to happen next. And so what's been great about our approach is that, number one, we both write. So the writing is the fun part. Sure. It's not that one of us is an editor or an outliner and the other one gets to do all the writing, or one person saying, here's the idea, now you go write it. I mean, that wouldn't work for us because we both like the writing. So that's number one. The other superpower that we have is, because there's two of us, we never have writer's block as a problem. And writer's block when you're writing by yourself is a very real thing, because you're writing alone. You're trying to do this by yourself, and when you get stuck, if you try to bring a spouse or a partner or a friend up to speed on your story, good luck, especially if you're several hundred pages.
They don't know what the hell you're talking about.
They don't know what you're talking about. He knows exactly what I'm talking about, because we're writing simultaneously. So we divide up the book into multiple point of view characters, and we actually kind of rotate through all of them, believe it or not. Some people think, well, you must write only this person, and Jeff must write only that person.
Yeah, that's the question I was going to ask next.
Yeah, no, we write
we split
all
them up.
Characters, and we rotate, because again, it's fun.
For efficiency, we tend to like each book is divided into a classic 3-act structure. So in Act 1, we might agree, like in a Sons of Valor book, like I'll say, okay, in Act 1, I'm going to write, Chunk, and I'm going to write Riker. You write Saw and Watts and the bad guy. But if we do that, then in Act 2, we swap all those around.
Wow. Okay.
And because we rewrite as we go, so let's say he's writing chapter 1, 2, 5, 7, whatever it is, and I'm writing the other ones. Every time he writes a couple chapters, he sends it to me, and every time I send it to him. And right in the moment you get it, you stop what you're doing and you rewrite that chapter. And so even if I didn't write the first draft of Whitney in Act 1,
Sure.
I've still written Whitney. She's still in my let I'm still like in her mind. And I think that gives us a real advantage.
So when you're doing this, right, and when you read them back, or do you think when the viewers read it back, the consumer, you think they can tell who wrote who? You ever get that?
I can tell that they can't. I mean, here's how I can tell you that. Because there have been at least 3 or 4 times where my wife will say, okay, chapter 11, that was you, right? And one of two things will happen. Either I'd be like, no, it wasn't. First draft was Brian. But more often I'm like, I don't remember.
Wow. Okay.
I don't even know.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, it's not even that you're not remembering because we both worked on it.
Yeah, we've touched it. We've touched everything.
So there's iterations, and so by the time, yes, you did write chapter 11, and so did I.
Yeah.
Right, and that's what's cool, and also, in the beginning, our particular narrative styles were a little different. They were symbiotic, but our voice was a little different. But after writing 24 books together, they've sort of converged, and so
we've become one person.
Yeah, we share a brain, and it's hard. These podcasts are difficult because we got to pass that brain back and forth between.
Right. It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
I like to say that between the two of us, we're almost one good writer.
Sure. Yeah.
Almost.
You made the comment about writer's block. So Dad, he writes articles for the outdoor industry, and he's been working on a novel. I won't say because I think it may come to fruition sooner than later.
Don't want to jinx it.
Yeah, but it's been that constant struggle of he'll go really hard with work and writing his articles, and then he can't write on the novel because he can't get in that zone, and then it'll be flip-flopped, and then he can do a lot of in the novel, but he can't go to the articles as well. So that's an interesting point. If you're having trouble or vice versa, you just kind of hand off, take a day, and go golf or, take
or just make a phone call, honestly. Like sometimes it's as simple as, dude, I'm in the middle of this chapter. I bring him up to speed. I'm not sure where to go. And then he'll like, oh, dude, what about this? And I'm like, and it's not necessarily that we'll do that, but then that makes me go, well, what about, because really our writing process is like 2 8-year-olds in the backyard playing, you know what I mean? Like making up a game. That's sort of how we write. Sure. It doesn't sound mature, but it is how it works. So I mean, it's really just a phone call. It's pretty rare that I say, I can't do this, you take it. It's more like, I'm not sure what to do. And he goes, oh, well, you know what? In the chapter that follows, I just wrote this part. And I'm like, oh, that helps a lot. Sure, and I'm going to do this. So and we have to, as you know, we got to write a book about every 14 weeks. So we got to keep it going. So we can't no one gets to take a day off for golf, but we do get to
It gives you that catalyst and the
100% catalyst is the perfect word.
That's great. That's super cool. Me and Mark were talking on the way back from lunch, and I was like, I don't know how you write with someone, So I'm a video editor by nature, and I can work really good. Just leave me alone, let me do it. And if someone comes in and they want to edit it, then the timeline's all messed up. But the catalyst part, that's a direct relation for me because I'll be stuck. I can't get out of this transition, so on. And my friend will say, well, why don't you just try this? And it may not be that, but it takes you to that spot where you get to the next step. Yeah, so that's super cool that you guys go back and forth that way.
I think because we do have an aggressive schedule, we're not writing one book every 2 years, we don't have the luxury of being like, well,
I'm not feeling it.
Yeah. I mean, there's that. I mean, there's this like accountability, really. It's like a workout partner.
Sure. It's
like you have that person that's counting on you. And so we set page goals for each other, but also, when you're trying to meet those page goals, but also just this idea that, we talked about in the Navy, there's this expression, it's called polishing the cannonball. If you don't have a deadline for your book or it's 2 years away, you can polish that cannonball forever. Yeah. But you reach diminishing marginal returns pretty quickly. And so I like that about the fact that we have an aggressive schedule. Our books they're not as polished as the most polished tome ever written by a human being, but, it forces us to work really hard and focused to get that product done. And I think as an end result, it ends up ironically being a tighter, better story than it would have been if we had just taken forever to
giving you
figure it
that
out.
room to make a mistake, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, no,
just to take
that's
it.
the perfect word, because the enemy of good is better, right?
Right.
And until your editor has seen it and you get those notes back, you are just polishing the cannonball,
Sure,
right?
yeah.
So you might, if you've got a year to write the book, you're going to take that whole year, like to Brian's point, and a lot of the work you're going to get done is going to be stuff that got cut. And you're going to be like,
Sure.
wow, it took me a whole month to make those changes. That chapter's not even in the book anymore. Yeah. So when we turn in a book, I will say that the book we turn into our publisher now is a rougher draft than when we started, but that's highly efficient. It wouldn't work if we didn't have ourselves surrounded by the most amazing people. So we've got our editor's name, we'll give a shout out to Andy. Andy Kiefer, best editor we've ever worked with, a developmental editor. Mm-hmm. He is really got amazing insight. So for us to polish it up before he gives the notes doesn't make sense.
And then it gives you all that extra
work. And my guess is the first time he saw it, he went, these guys are best-selling writers? What is that? How is that possible, right? But he's now all read in. Like he takes off. He doesn't treat us with kids' gloves. He's like, that was stupid. And like, so, and then now we're a 3-man team. So the editing process.
We've never written anything stupid.
Well, you have. I didn't want to bring it up here.
Shared brain, right?
I didn't intend to bring it up here.
So, and this is a little off, but for an aspiring writer like you mentioned, what does that look like then working with a publisher? Kind of take us through. You're starting. You want to write the book. You want to write a series. Now you need to find someone and so on.
This is important because it's a little different standard of polish. If you are an aspiring author, that first book that you're going to present does need to be perfect.
Sure.
It does.
You can't turn in the crap we turn.
It does need to be polished because that's sort of your first impression. You don't have a development. Now you could hire a developmental editor on the front end, but in general, you want that first submission. Sort of that old adage, you can never make a first impression twice, right? So you want to impress that literary agent or that acquiring editor with your best work. And they're seeing work all the time. And they know by the end of the first page, typically, if this person is a good writer or not. Okay. And they'll be hooked. That first page, you have to have a hook, you have to have setting, and you have to have character. Sure. And if you don't have control of point of view, these 4 elements, they'll say, amateur, go back to,
go to the drawing board.
Go back to the drawing board, learn your craft, and come back and see me later. Because I think it's important for aspiring authors to understand that they're not buying a book from you. They're investing in, hopefully, lots of books from you. They want to market you. They want to help build a career for you. And if they feel like you're a one-book wonder, that's not really what they're looking for.
Well, and similar to music or any other industry, they are investing in the person. If the person can only give me one hit, it's going to be on the radio and gone next month. Yep. So when you're going with these publishing houses or so on, so like I mentioned, Dad's a writer. He's had a couple books published, and it's been, you get them on Amazon, you can find them. We were in an outfitter, an outdoor store in South Africa. Walked in, and in the bookshelf, there was Dad's book.
That's
which
cool.
was insane to us. We didn't even know it was sold over here. So how does that, when you're approaching that publisher for the aspiring author, how do they go about that? They just do a Google search. What would some routes you would?
Well, first of all, to be honest, that's not really the writer's job in traditional publishing. So, with some very rare exceptions, if you're going to be a traditionally published author with a big publishing house, you have an agent. You can't not have an agent. In fact, they won't even accept submissions from unagented people, right? Yeah. So the agent becomes that first fire stop, right, to make sure that crap is not getting all the way to. So you have to impress the agent first, and then a good agent, and they don't all do this, but our agent, Gina, is she's actually an amazing editor. So a good agent will even say, okay, I like it, I see the potential of it, here's my notes, rewrite it, and they'll get it ready. But once it's ready to submit, the author is not involved. Right. Now if you're smart and you have some good business sense, in our case, for example, we had some business model ideas of where we wanted to be. We wanted to be across several different platforms. And so you tell your agent, they still do work for you. And you're like, well, we really want to be at Blackstone, for example. We want to have something at the Big Five, and we want to do something with APUB.
Sure.
And so you can guide them. But in terms of what the editor sees, the acquisition editor, that's going to be the agent. The agent does all of that stuff.
Gotcha.
They might get you to write a query letter or a bio or whatever, but it's kind of their job to vet that.
Find you a good agent, produce good work, and the rest will
then
come.
let them do their job, right?
Yeah, that makes sense, and that keeps a lot of. It's a good filter. Keeps things from going.
Well, and that's there was a clearing process, right? So it's this idea that in traditional publishing we're talking about now, sort of a analogy would be like the university process. If every single person got into, say, Princeton,
right.
then it wouldn't be Princeton, right? And so what you had was that the agents were that first hurdle, like Jeff said. They were a backstop, and they have a 95% rejection rate. So 5% of those titles, they would go shop. And then the acquisition editors were the next hurdle.
Sure.
And they're going to buy maybe 20% of the stuff the agents bring them. So there was this significant attrition. By the time a book came out to market, it was the cream rising to the top.
Sure.
Vetted by professionals who know what sells, and so you had a lot of good stuff coming out. Not all books, obviously. There's still bad books or books that people don't like, but at least these books were professionally produced.
Sure.
Now,
cleaned and filtered through, and
Right,
Yeah,
some sort of vetting.
Yeah.
went
with
into
the
it.
introduction of Kindle Direct Press, which is on the one hand great, anybody can be an author. Anybody can be an author,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And so now, I think when we went the traditional publishing route because KDP didn't exist when we started our careers, and I think there were like 100,000 thrillers, some number like 100,000 thrillers published a year, and then when KDP came on the scene, it exploded to 1 million.
sure.
There's so many books on Amazon. So now it's a different game, which is the game of discovery. Let's imagine that there were 9 million gun manufacturers. Wilson trying to get attention. Even if you have a great product, it's
You're gonna see. Yep.
Exactly.
Yep.
And so for aspiring authors, it doesn't mean that using the KDP platform and publishing your own work, there's nothing wrong with that. There's a lot of professionals who are doing it because they have complete control over their career. It's just very challenging because now you are the marketer, the editor, the legal person, the person doing the cover art. You're taking on all those roles that a publisher would traditionally augment.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and that was a great point, that anyone can be an author, and anyone can be an author. So very similar with consumer cameras and your iPhone. Everyone now is a videographer and a photographer, and you'll receive applications that, I need to go back and get cleaned, maybe get an agent, come talk to me after, but similar thing. So when you guys, and kind of going way back here, but your first book together that was published, kind of walk us through how that felt. What was that process like? Was it a week? Was it a month or month and a half? When did you hear back? Just walk us through that whole.
So it's for us together. It's a little different because we were not established like we are now, but we both were published. We had some success that we could point to. We had an agent already. The Tier 1 book was the first book that we sold from Andrews and Wilson. We sold it to Thomas and Mercer, and it happened relatively quickly. Actually, we wrote the book, and I think she had it sold in 6 months, something like that. But then we had a bunch of weird stuff happen. The person that acquired it, the editor that acquired it, that loved it, left, and the new editor came in. And so there's always some of this weird business stuff. But I will tell you that that first time you see a book of yours with your name on it, like you open up that box the first time, and it's like, wow, you can hold it in your hands. That's a special feeling. You open up that box and you hold it in your hand, you're like, that's my book. And even better than that, you open it up, you start reading a little bit, and you're like,
Sure. It's pretty good.
shit, we wrote that.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Who wrote that? That's really good. So for me, at least, that kind of feeling never really went away.
Sure.
When you start a book, you have to tell yourself as an author not to hold anything back. Mm-hmm. You want to because it might be the last book you ever write.
Sure.
You don't know. You don't know the future. So our strategy's always been try to make it the most exciting, most thrilling, whatever best ideas we have and characters.
Put them in this one.
Put it in this one.
We don't hold it back.
Yeah.
So we had no idea that we'd be working on book 10
Sure.
in that series. That's a pretty long running series.
It's at least 10 good ideas.
Yeah, at least 10.
good ideas.
Yes.
Yeah. And we've had now, several 100,000 people who have come on this journey with us and gotten to know these characters. And I think as you write a series, some authors write standalones. So every book is a new set of characters, a new story, and it ends, and they start something new.
Yep.
That is exciting in one sense because it's always fresh. But on the other hand, it's like, you spent the effort to get to know these people.
Right, you can carry them on and have a similar journey with them as making new ones. Yeah.
And so with the series, what's happened, and I think to our surprise and delight, is that people really care about these characters.
Sure.
Just like we do. Yeah. So we care about them. We like finding out what's going to happen in the next installment in their lives, but so do the fans.
Right.
And that's been something, when we first wrote the book, I never imagined we'd have. I'd hoped we'd have 10, but I never imagined that we'd be on book 10 in that series with 4 spin-off books.
And now we have 4 series. Like we've written 30 books. We were talking earlier. We were on the range together, and we were talking about that very thing about how we pull characters through, and you really get to know them and in a relationship with them. And we also write things that are very realistic. So there must be loss, there must be sacrifice. We've served, we've lost people, and we want to share that experience. When you write those losses, it's first of all, it's painful for us. Like I'm not ashamed to say when one of our main characters, Shane Smith, died, like it was devastating for me. Like I'd take a couple days off. Like I was weeping while I was crying. And then you get past it and you're like, okay, I made him up. It's okay.
It's not real.
It's not real. Right. It's not real. But then you start getting mail.
Sure.
How could you? And you're like, and at first you're like, oh my gosh, maybe we made a mistake or whatever. But then you realize you have this epiphany. You're like, if you cared so much that you took time to send me that email,
oh yeah, absolutely.
then I did my job, right? Like my job.
You brought them all the way on that journey with you.
And that person that wrote that email, they read the next book.
Yep.
I promise you, they read the next book. So you really do bring people to life. These fictional characters to life. It's a pretty cool feeling.
Sure.
My wife said to me, we started a book recently. I don't want to have any spoilers. She just said, well, don't ever do something to person X, Y, Z. She's like, no, you didn't. I said,
buy it and find out.
When my wife says that, I always say, Brian did it.
And she brings up the shared brain, and then you go in this big circle. Yeah,
it wasn't only half me.
So, and that's funny because, I watched Game of Thrones, just started. Everyone else is like finished, and they're on to the House of Dragons, so I just started it. And for the first 2 seasons, you're kind of just like, yeah, it's medieval. And then they start killing people you care about. And it's like, I took 2 or 3 days to watch the next episode. I mean, it's the same thing. So, yeah, anytime you can create that bond to a character, you've done something pretty successful there.
Yeah, and I think like Jeff said, it's real life, but also just from a storytelling standpoint, too. It's like, if there aren't stakes, if there's no risk, if nothing bad can ever happen to anybody in your series, people will eventually say, this series is boring.
Yep.
So we have to make sure that it does mirror real life, which is that people age, they get injured, some people die, some people, like it's just like in football. You have a good game, but sometimes you have a bad game, and so it's how you come back from those bad games. That's inspirational sometimes. And so we think about that.
Sure. Well, and if all your characters have a no-lose clause,
right?
I know how this book ends. I just started it. That's a page 1, right? So they figure that out pretty soon.
Yeah.
Lee Child told us once, the way to make people love your work is to ask a question at the beginning and don't answer it till the end.
There you go.
And you're like,
yeah.
And then why? You say, no, that's it.
Yeah. Yep. So, and then kind of sticking on that progression path there, what's it like for, an aspiring artist yourselves? How do you go from that print to an adaptation for a screen, of either it's a big screen in a movie or on a TV series side? How does that work? I'm sure, again, it's a lot of agents and publication house and then so back and forth. How does that look for someone who has no idea?
Yeah, and you could ask that question of 10 people that have succeeded in that area, and you get 10 different answers. So I can only give us, our answer of how it worked. One is that we're highly intentional. So we had started out from I think by the time we were on the second or third book, we were, of the 30 we've written together, we were already saying, look, multimedia is the way to go. It's different. And you were alluding to this earlier. Like, people consume story differently than they did 30, 40 years ago. Everybody read, everybody watched TV. Now, there are people that only get their stories from television. There are people that only get it from shorts, from YouTube, from TikTok, from whatever. There are people that only watch movies. There are people that only read books. So if you want to share your stories with the large population, you really have to be a multimedia storyteller. And so from very early on, we had decided that's what we wanted to do. We were very blessed that we ended up with a publishing house that shared that vision. So we moved Tier 1 and sold Sons of Valor to Blackstone, and they have become partners in all aspects of our work. So they actually hired a book-to-film guy, great guy, who works full-time for them now, because they share that vision. We need to be in multiple spaces. So that gave us a real advantage, I think, that we have the support, because your literary agent wants to do it, but they don't have the connections, right? And you're gonna hire your own film agent? And how do you do that? How do you know who is good, who isn't? So we got lucky in that we had somebody that set all that up for us. What we learned very early on is that just like in publishing, maybe even more so, Hollywood is relational. We all know the trope of the big studio exec with a cigar who doesn't care about people, and they are out there. But the vast majority of people that we've interacted with are just like-minded people who just want to tell a great story. And so once we sold a couple of things and got things in development, we were able to build relationships. And so, getting the first couple things sold, many authors will never sell anything for adaptation. We feel blessed. But what we did that was different was we tried to leverage that into more. So we got into relationships with, Peter is a perfect example, right? We sold something to Skydance. Peter Johnson was over there. He was the one that bought it. We became friends with Peter. He left Skydance, went to somewhere else. We worked with him. What can we do together? And so now we have 2 projects in development with Peter, right? And so having a producer already attached and their relationships. We have relationships with all kinds of different folks. Mark Evans is another one. He was a producer on one of our projects that's still in development, and now he's almost more of a mentor, like he's become a friend and a mentor. So I think that you can get into that part of the business by being a good storyteller, first of all, but by being relational. Just be a good person, right? Just be a good dude, and things tend to work out better for you.
And I think one of the other big challenges of it, even if you have the relationship component sort of figured out, or you're working on that, developing that, getting something made as a television show or a feature film is a different level of complexity and a different level of coordination and a different financial risk. So with a book, what's great is the publisher can, let's say they buy a book from an author for a $10,000 advance. They're risking $10,000 on that, buying that book and paying their copy editor and their marketing department and getting out there. So maybe they're all in at $20,000. You want to make a feature film, and
and it's a whole different.
You're talking $100 million, right? So now what's happened is, lots of people are willing to take a risk if it's if this book's a flop, I'm not going to lose my job because I got all these other books out there, and this one we only spent $20K on. But if you've just hitched your horse to the Fall Guy and you spent $200 million on it, and the movie doesn't perform, it doesn't earn out in the box office, you're going to lose your job. And so there's a lot of fear I would say, in the film and television industry. This fear of failure sort of starts to permeate the industry at lots of different levels. And it's in one sense, it's justified. It's real. But because of that, and there's this level of risk aversion, you end up adding a lot more stakeholders and a lot more people that have to make sure that it passes this hurdle, or they get a say because they feel like they have some culpability. And what ends up happening is everything grinds to a very slow progression, you know, or maybe to a complete halt, you know. And so you really need a champion. You know, there has to be someone like a Mark Evans who's willing to say, nope, we're going to keep going this way, and, you know, whipping the horses and keep going. We're going to drive this boat. We're going to drive this carriage, whatever metaphor you want to use. And so what we've found is that, you know, number one, we're aware of this. We're aware of the complexity.
Sure.
Number two, we have to cheerlead and sort of be those people ourselves, right? So if we feel like the project's starting to grind to a halt, then we have to go in and essentially just use our enthusiasm and our motivation and maybe try to make other connections to try to get this thing going. But just the level of complexity and the fact that there's gatekeepers to get to the audience too.
Right, and I think that's why you have to understand whatever business you go into, right? You get this, right? Because in your business, you can't just start making videos.
Sure.
Like, you got to educate yourself,
Yep.
not just how to make videos, but about the business side of it. And so we worked really hard to do that. And as a result, like Brian said, we know that we can be the best advocates for our work. But if you don't have a voice, then it doesn't matter if you can be the best advocate because no one's going to hear it.
Sure.
So from the very beginning, we were very lucky in that we worked aggressively and got people to buy into the idea, well, if you want our story, you can option it, but we're attached as executive producers.
Well, and that was a question I was going to have too. And how much say, how different is it? You know, you hear the Harry Potter movies suck because they're so different. Love them. Loved them my whole life. Wouldn't know. But, you know, how does that look for you guys? You know, did they change the names? Did they change everything about it?
It definitely depends on the partner. And that's something that you learn as you go. You're like, okay, we probably won't do another project with this guy.
Sure.
I'm glad we got paid, but, you know, we're not really in a partnership. I think for most authors who they want to see their book made into a film or a television show or whatever, but they don't know anything about it. And so the last step that they take is someone gives them the option and takes their baby away, and then they are going to just bring it back when it's all grown up, and they're going to hope it turned out okay, right?
Yeah.
And it's because they don't really have, they didn't negotiate a say, but for some of them, they shouldn't have a say because it's not,
Just
they
not
haven't
their realm.
educated
Yeah.
themselves into that medium. And so our more recent projects, we have more say than in earlier projects because now people kind of know that our opinion means something
Sure,
and that
right.
sort of thing. So, but that's, if you really want to have a say, then you got to contract that.
You have
say.
to advocate.
Right. You have to say, okay, well, we want to be able to write an episode of a TV show, or we want to be executive producers, which is that's another whole story. Like, executive producer means different things to
Sure.
different people. I can tell you that. Some people it means, okay, you'll get an extra check, and
Yep.
then please shut up and leave us alone. In other places, we're part of casting, we're part of the writing, we're part of everything.
Sure.
So, but you got to advocate for yourself. If you want to have that role, then you got to make that clear. And if you also might have to pass on something, like someone says, yeah, well, we want your story, but we have no interest in your opinion.
Right.
If it's okay with you, then great. If not, then,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, and I think to that point of you knowing a little bit about it, right? The worst thing, and I'm sure we've all seen a movie example, but a guy gets a gun, maybe the hammer isn't back and the gun's going off, or he shoots a revolver 12 times.
Right.
You know, it's endless. And you got to assume that that's not coming from an educated gun guy. Right. You would imagine, right?
Absolutely.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, and you know, that one of the other differences between film and publishing is, you know, it's okay if there's 12 spy novels released this year and 25 military thriller actions.
Sure.
But if you go to Paramount and you're like, I got a great idea. It's about these Top Gun pilots, right? And they're going to fly these jets. I mean, you're going to be like, you know, there's one Top Gun, man. Like, they're not going to do another Top Gun. It doesn't matter how good a writer you are, or who you got cast. I mean, so the lanes that you have, there's a lot more hurdles and criteria that you have to pass in order just to get your piece of IP slotted into something that hasn't already been done, or if it has been done, yours is doing it in a different way enough that it's going to get funded.
And then you got to maneuver that part of it too, because all of the executives all are like, I want something fresh and new, but I want it to be like this because that performed. And you're like, well,
Less risk for me.
Well, which one do you want? Do you want it like that, or do you want something fresh and new? If I give you something fresh and new, then it's
not
never
gonna be like
never
that.
been done.
Yep.
I won't be able to show you that it will perform. And
Same
they're like,
but different is
yeah,
a really
I want
interesting.
this. Yeah, I want the same but different. That's
Same
right.
but different is sort of our life, and trying to figure out
Sure.
what does that mean.
Book to book and how you go with
Yeah.
story and character and so on.
There's
So-
an art to same but different, and I think on the publishing side, at least knock on wood, we seem to have figured that out. It's important. People, when they pick up an Andrews and Wilson book, they want to go on a great ride and have military characters doing the types of missions we write about. Not sure what's going to happen when they put it down there. Like, okay, yeah, that was a good Andrews and Wilson book. Right? And so when they come back to us, they want another one of those. So we have to deliver on that. But in Hollywood, like we're saying, we got to figure out how do we get in here, get our own little lane.
So, and that's another question. Have you ever considered just being screenplay writers? I mean, has that come to the part of your life where that's what you're looking for, or is there any kind of
Sure.
aspiration?
So we're all the above kind of approach to storytelling. So at the moment, we have a series of novels being adapted where we are consultants on it as executive producers. We have things that started as a 30-page short story that got optioned where we're writing the film. So
Okay.
we are working
Yeah,
as
right.
screenwriters. And then we have things in between, right? So whether it's just being able to, be involved in the writing room or pick the writer or
Sure.
hear their pitch and say, okay, that might work, or we're actually adapting ourselves. We love to screenwrite. It was new for us. We've only done it a couple of times now. We think we're good at it. We got to convince some other folks that we're good at it. Mark Evans believes in us. We love you, Mark. Yeah, we do like screenwriting. The neat thing about screenwriting, well, first of all, I don't think that everyone who can write a screenplay can write a novel, and I don't think everyone that can write a novel can write a screenplay. Yep. I think we're very lucky that we seem to have a skill for both. Mm-hmm. We write, our novels are written in a relatively cinematic way, and we do, we just know this from talking to each other over the years, I do describe things I'm seeing in my head, and Brian is the same. I hear the conversation. I'm like a scribe, right? Dempsey is saying, here's what I do. And I'm like, okay, gotcha, JD, right? So that helps. So I don't think everybody can do it. Not to say we're something special. We're not. We do seem to have that skill set. So once you write your first one and you're like, okay, now I see what it's up to, it's actually kind of fun. What I like about screenwriting is you're really just, you have to have really good dialogue, and then you're just sort of cliff noting out a story. Mm-hmm. Sure. Because you're in partnership with a good producer and hopefully a very talented director, and if you're really blessed, actors who actually bring something other than memorizing lines. Yeah. So you don't have to do what you do in a novel, right? So a novel takes us 3 months to write. Well, I mean, I know that's fast, but maybe it takes usually 6 months to write a novel. Screenplay might take you 6 or 8 weeks.
Right.
Because it's really just a framework for all these other professionals that you trust to bring it to life. And so I think that's what I love about it. It's very collaborative. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, here's my vision for it. All right, now let's get on set and change it. And I've done a couple of low budget faith-based films. I have literally been, off screen in the kitchen of the location, rewriting in pen for the next scene because they're like, let's try this. And you're like scribbling it out, handing it off, and the actors are looking at it. To me, that's super fun, right? That's JSOC stuff, right? Mm-hmm. That's like kinetic, adapt and overcome. It's really, really cool.
So what's the most recent adaptation we could go find and, check that out?
That you can see? Mm-hmm. We don't have anything we can point to see right now.
Not
so
yet.
We have, there's a couple of small films. We won't talk about those. But there's a few that are very, very close. So our Tier 1 series is got producers, it's got a showrunner, it's got a writer, the pilot's written. That one's close.
Awesome.
Our film with Mark Evans is very, very close. I think Strike Group will go pretty quickly. We have something that we're not supposed to talk about that's already set up at Netflix that I think is going to be filming soon. So we're going to have lots of things to announce over the next 12 to 18 months. There's nothing you can't go to Netflix today and see it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, that'll be awesome. I feel like Netflix at this point is better than cable in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But no, that's super cool. When you guys are going in and you're writing these stories, let me give you kind of like a prompt, I guess I should say. You're coming up with a new book, new fresh series. Where does that start for you? Do you have it kind of naturally? You find somewhere you'd like to take it? Or does it kind of or your publishers kind of saying, hey, let's maybe consider this? How does it come to write a new
series?
Brand new.
Yeah, so a lot of times it just simply comes from a question, you know, and so a lot of books are just born from what if. Oh, you know, what if some drone pilot, you know, in the Ukrainian army figured out how to, you know, fly a first-person drone all the way to, you know, a base in central Russia and blow up one of the backfire bombers. You know, so it can be that granular, that specific. It could just be, well, what if a private eye, like, lost his memory, and, you know, as soon as it happened, like, you know, the guy that he put away is coming back for revenge, and he doesn't understand. Yeah. So that's sort of just like what if, or us riffing off of each other. That happens a lot, you know, just experience from daily life. And we also just are guys that read, like, you know, we read other books, we read periodicals, we're plugged into the news cycle. So, I mean, the news cycle is insane.
That alone could give you enough, right? I mean, you could come up with a huge series.
Yeah, and as former naval officers, we are just drawn to that anyway. So we would be following geopolitics even if our careers didn't depend on it, which they do. But yeah, the what if thing, I think, that's how every story starts. We don't have any publishers telling us, hey, write this. We don't have any. Every now and then we'll partner with a producer that's like, okay, yeah, I like that story. What if you did something like this? And to be honest, that's fun. We've had some success. So 4 Minutes came out of that, right? So 4 Minutes is a novel we released last year. That's the film that's in development with Mark Evans. So that whole story was a phone call, a Zoom call actually with Peter. And we're like, what else are you looking for? He goes, you know, if there was something with time travel. But, you know, they never do. They never have an idea. They just have they have a what if, right? He's like, something with time travel, but, you know, not like cheesy, tropey. Like, it's got to be grounded. It's got to be very realistic. It's got to be that one by speculative. Do you have anything like that? And we're like, well, and we kicked it around and we were like, well, what would that look like?
So not Tenet.
Yeah.
Not the movie.
Not Tenet, right. It's something.
You
so
watch it 4
for
times.
us, we want to do stuff that's really, really grounded. So we do speculative stuff. So 4 Minutes is a perfect example of what we like to do in the speculative space, which is we want something where if you're going to do time travel, then a physicist should watch it and go, that might be how it works. Right, exactly.
Sure, right.
It's got to be one by, it's got to be set like 4 days into the future. You know what I mean? Like, it's got to be very believable and grounded. Yeah. And then we're going to have special operations characters. So in 4 Minutes, it was like, what about time travel? It's like, yeah, okay, time travel. How would it work? So we looked into the math and the physics, how it would work. But then the best part was, but we got to make it kind of suck, right? It can't be Back to the Future and go to the Old West. It can't be, you know, Walking with the Dinosaurs. So we put all these rules on it. Like, okay, DARPA cracked time travel, but you can only go up to 28 days into the future, and you can only stay for 4 minutes.
Sure.
And so what a letdown. You're like, well, that's not sexy at all.
Yeah.
But then the next thing that happens is you go, but what if we'd known about 9/11 28 days in advance?
Right.
What would that change? And so that was
28 days to interdict in the
you'd
present.
have 28 days to figure it out and stop it before it happens.
Wow,
right?
yeah.
And so
Now
that's how that story evolved. Just like this, the three of us, like, hey, what if?
Yep.
Dude, we have something. And we have plenty of what ifs that we go, we do not have something. This is not, let's put that in the drawer. Maybe it'll come to us later. But almost all of our stories start that way.
That's so cool, because I think in essence, that's what humans do when they're telling any story.
100%.
You know? And like you said, the 8-year-olds on the playground, it's, well, what if I'm the army guy?
Yeah.
Why don't you be the bad guy?
You be the bad guy, I'll be the army guy. I'm the Navy SEAL, right?
Yeah, that's great, guys. So, and being on the subs, I meant to say this earlier, but one of my best friends, and I'm sure I'll get it slightly wrong, so I'll apologize to him after. I won't say his name. Went in the Navy, wanted to be a SEAL, got down that road a ways. I don't know to what extent. But he decided that he would be really well served to dive in the sink tanks of subs and repair them. And I just thought that was the craziest career change. You go from wanting to be a SEAL, go to see Bin Laden, to go in the tank, and it always looks the same. I thought that was funny. I'll reach out to him after this, tell him I shouted him out. But yeah, so when you guys are going, and maybe you're halfway through the book, maybe you're getting close to the end, and on the authors, right? what kind of marketing does that look like for you? Do any of it? Do you tell your close friends? Do you go to a media outlet? And I know we're here kind of promoting this book, but how does that look, for the guy who is getting started, who wants to get it out there? Maybe he's got his first signed on with the house and so on. So how does that look?
It's an awesome question because I think it's something that's the most misunderstood by authors. So 50 years ago, you sent your book to your editor, and then you went and wrote your next book.
Sure.
And you had nothing to do with anything. And they said, oh, you got to go to these places and sign books. And you're like, oh, okay. And that was it. Now, if you are not part of that marketing, there's a high expectation that you are going to be promoting your own work, whether it's leveraging your own relationships to get on podcasts, whether it's working with fellow writers, whatever it is. You need to go into this business nowadays with the expectation that if your book is not successful and it's because of promotion, it's your fault as much as the publisher. The days of blaming the publisher are over. So for us, what that looks like is we have a lot of great relationships with fellow authors, especially in the veteran community, and all of us tend to lift each other up. We co-promote each other's stuff. We do appearances with each other. Don will say, hey, I'm launching a book, come to this thing. We'll do a panel, and I'll do one for you. So we do a lot of that kind of stuff. Social media, I hate, but it's part of life and it's part of the business. And so we got to run social media stuff. We got to do interviews. The publisher brings a lot to the table. So Blackstone has been a great partner. They have a great marketing team. They help us with social media. They have a publicist. Our publicist's name is Jackie. She's amazing. She's a contractor that works with Sarah, who's our main publicist there. So it takes an entire team.
Absolutely.
But if you go into it as a writer thinking that team is going to do it and you don't have to do anything, then you're setting yourself up for failure. You've got to be part of the solution.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a term sort of a term of art in the industry. It's called a platform, and your platform is just your access to potential buyers or your fans or your readers. So like in your dad's case, he has an entire built-in audience of people from his periodical publishing, right? The articles that he writes, those people, they come back to read his articles and say, like what he has to say. And so, for him to go to a publisher and say, my platform is the audience that I'm already writing for. Now, if he said, instead of writing a book that would appeal to these people, I'm going to write a romance novel, then, now the publisher's going to be like,
you don't have that platform.
You just gave up your platform. And so your platform can be a combination of things. It can be the people that read your other stuff. It can be your social media followers. It can be that, you are a regular guest on a radio show. It can be that you have a blog. And so what's happened now is that, the successful authors have platforms on multiple channels. And so it all works together for this reach to reach your audience. And so, just trying to get people's attention. I mean, we're not competing against just other authors. We're competing against ESPN and Fox News and TikTok and Taylor Swift and anything that you're going to list, anything that will steal somebody's attention away from your book, that's competition. And so it does, you asked this question earlier, and I wanted to chime in, the conversation moved on, but this is a good chance to circle back to it. I just want to make a plug for anybody that's listening or watching on YouTube. There's no other medium like books in the sense that it's the only time where you get to spend time with a character inside their head.
Sure. Right.
It's the only medium where you're in their headspace through a protracted period of time. So you get 12 hours, with our team. And there's a lot of good stuff that's in that story that would be cut out if it was turned into a feature film or a TikTok clip, for example. You'd miss a lot of good stuff. So it is worth the journey. I think it's a lot more fulfilling if you're along for the entire ride than just getting the highlights.
Sure. Jeff, Brian, it's been great, guys. Really appreciate getting to sit down and talk to you guys. So July 22nd, Sons of Valor, False Flag. All right. Thank you, guys.